Amen. Amen. Tamanyaba, yao, tamanyaba, yao, tamanyaba, yao, tamanyaba, yao. Oh say ye, oh say ye, oh say ye, aye. Oh say ye, oh say ye, oh say ye, oh say ye, aye. Oh say ye.
History, yeah. So, but this turmoil, you can say, that happened in the magazines and the film getting banned makes it more attractive somehow. What happened where? I know that in the US there was an openness because maybe of the sibling Black Power movements in the US. So there was acceptance over there. But what happened in Europe? Like, maybe you can tell.
Well, in the US, the film was very, very popular. In fact, an organization, an African American organization, organized a series of lectures for me. And I was very busy in the US. I was touring high schools, colleges, and I was constantly moving from one state to the next. And it was very, very successful. The activity in the US actually aroused me, and it made me feel really quite passionate about the fact that this film, there must be something about this film which people are trying to suppress. So eventually the visit to the US, for instance, I was telling Jide that at some of the schools that I attended, they were paying me as much as $200 for a screening. So it was also, I was able to raise enough funding to do other projects and so on and so forth. But from the US, I came back home.
And then so you have this very, very strong piece that's highly celebrated in the magazines, and I believe it also pushes the discourse on restitution a bit ahead, and different organizations starts bringing discussions to governments. Then by the late 70s, during the 80s, 90s, nothing is happening.
Yes.
Things are. How did that make you feel as
well,
someone who made his voice so clear, so loudly with this film? How did that silence and repression of the demand or the needs?
Yeah. In fact, the only positive thing that happened to me when I came back from the US was that the director of the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, who had read about the film in the West Africa magazine, somebody introduced me to him, and he said to me, "Look, let me see the film." So I showed the film to him, and he said, "Look, what are you doing in London?" I said, "Prof, I'm freezing in London, and I want to come home." Then he said, "Okay, I want you to come here to this university, to this department, and start a film department here." So I got a job right there on the spot. And I was amazed. So he gave me a letter. I took the letter back to the university office in London. They organized everything for me, and I was shipped all the way back to Accra. So I started work at the Institute of African Studies and developed a media research unit to make films, because most of the researchers at the Institute produce a lot of research material which is just piling up. So I decided to transform those research material into documentaries, into films. So that's how the media research unit started, in Ghana. But after that, the film I had to put it on the shelf because I had to deal with other projects. I was making other films and etc. So I forgot about you, I mean. I moved on. Then, in 2020, my eldest son is in the US. He called me and said, that was when George Floyd, the man who was the policeman who knelt on the neck of this African American, my son called me and said, "Hey, there is a festival in Philadelphia, the Black Star Film Festival, and somebody who has seen your film in 1970 said that I should call you for you to bring the film to use it in the festival. I said, come on, man, this is an old film. It's more than half a century old, man. You know? So he said, no, let me bring it. So I uploaded the film to him and I forgot about it. 1 week later, he calls me and said, hey, Pop, the audience gave you a standing ovation and the film has won a prize. The film was... I said, come on, man, because I know festival regulations, before a film can be entered into a competition, it has to be 1 year old and not more than 1 year. But it's a 15 years old film. I won the prize. Really? I couldn't believe it. So when the prize, the Paris prize, came up, the film went viral. I was getting phone calls from everywhere, from Japan, from here and there. And so suddenly the issue of restitution, which was then the movement, which was growing, both in Africa and elsewhere, So suddenly You Had Me is now taking a walk. That's why I'm here.
I think we'll soon start taking questions, but there's one thing I would still like to try to get a sense of, because to me it's somehow unimaginable. After so many years of being in the movement and having delivered a work like this, and then your film goes on the shelf, and then not randomly, but somehow 50 years later, it plops up to the surface again, and there's so much attention and so much need for this film to take its effects again. I'm curious to understand how does that make you feel as a person, as a filmmaker, having put something from the past on the shelf and then it resurfaces. Is there pride, or is it like confusion, or is it I told you 50 years ago, don't come and bother me now? Like what's the feeling?
To tell you the truth, the whole thing is surreal.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wait a minute. It's something which was a passion, something burning inside me, which resulted in this film, and then suddenly everything went quiet. So when the movement started, and it suddenly aroused me, and in fact, You Had Me has drawn attention to my work, because people want to know what other things I'm doing, and but now my dream, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. Also, me too, I have a dream for You Had Me. I want to translate You Had Me. I want to decolonize You Had Me from the English language and translate it into local African languages. First of all, beginning with my country, because there are local language television stations, so that people can debate it in their languages. I want to produce a Yoruba language, Igbo, Nigerian languages, South African languages. And I want You Had Me to explore, and for people everywhere, especially Africans, who don't speak, because we in Africa, the colonial language, English, blah, 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 So basically, that's my vision now. And to tell you the truth, I met an African here, a Tanzanian here called Mboro. And I had a fantastic meeting with him, because the location where his office is was the location where the Berlin Conference that divided Africa like a piece of cake. It took place in that office. The building it's a new building now, because there are a lot of new buildings in Berlin. But the old building was destroyed, and this new building. And he has agreed to do a Swahili version of You Had Me. So, when I got the opportunity finally to enter the basement, I said, no, I don't think I should go alone. I must go with one of my sisters. And she's a Ghanaian student who was studying law in London at that time. So I called her and I said, look, I've got this opportunity, this rare opportunity to go into the basement, and I don't want to go there alone. I want So she was really happy, and she was so happy, you know. And so she came to my house, and we had a discussion, and we arranged to meet on the day that I was going to go into the museum. And when we entered the museum, you know, she herself became possessed by some of the things she saw, you know. She was opening some boxes by herself, which you saw all these interesting things. And it was, you know, the two of us, actually, when we came out, we were overwhelmed. And, you know, I'm very happy that I went there with one of our sisters and not just myself alone.
But this might be a bit of an ignorant question.
I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yes.
Okay.
It might be a bit ignorant, but it's very cool the way you guys enter the film. Like, you have this black exploitation type, and you have your silhouettes, and then going through the tunnel, and you know it's just super cool. But did you talk about this, like, okay, let's dress like this, or let's style like this, or was that your natural appearance?
Well, in those days, I told you that, you know, I was involved in the Black Power movement and things like that. And you know, the sister had this big afro, you know. And when we went there, you know, I was just wearing the jacket. I was wearing black, you know, but I just put on this jacket. But when we arrived there, I think that something happened to the two of us, because that was my second time there. But when she came there with me, you know, and the crew, went there with a crew of 2, and everybody was mesmerized, totally mesmerized. That how did you get the permission to come down here? I mean, it was unbelievable. So I said, come on, let's work. We have to start from 9 to 5. So quickly, we got to work. And to tell you the truth, what you saw in the collection is like a quarter of what we saw there. I mean, we could have, this thing should have taken us about a week to explore different sections, because there was Nigeria, there was Cameroon, South Africa. I mean, and sometimes it was unbelievable, you know. So, man, that's, when I think about it, it just, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that power is in the film, the connection that you had with the artifacts, that spiritual strength, whatever it was. I think that's what, you know, channeled you to make that very, very strong narration.
And they had 15 security officers to watch us, make sure that we don't steal any of the things that they are stolen from us.
That you had to pay for yourself. You had to pay.
Yeah, we had to pay to see the things they've stolen from us, and then they had to watch us so that we don't take. You know.
So we have more questions. Yes, so the language has maybe evolved about how we talk about things, but the power structures, the post-colonial power structures are still at place. So how does that make you feel that not much has changed? I mean, right now, for example, in the case of the restitution, some governments are returning some pieces, but nothing is happening unconditionally and immediately, you know. So the changes are very, very small, and so yeah, after decades long of struggle and activism, how do you feel about the status quo? I think is roughly.
Okay, so you know, Germany has returned some artifacts to Berlin and so on and so forth. So one of the things I did in Ghana, I met with some officials in the Ministry of Culture, and I showed them the film. So they were able to organize a group supported by the government called the KuK Group. And it was the first time the Ghanaian government tried to follow the example of the Nigerian government to campaign for the return of artifacts from the British Museum. So this group has been organized, and I'm a member of the group, and the group has been organized to use You Hide Me, the film, as part of his campaign, to organize the campaign to, you know, confront the British authorities to return these stolen artifacts. So at least to a certain level, some movement is taking place in Ghana after the film was banned almost 50 years ago. So at least, when I get back home now, I have to report. They know that they knew that I was coming here. So they are also waiting to hear from the outcome of this event here and so on and so forth. So basically, things are moving very slowly, not fast enough for me, but hey. Am I satisfied with what?
She was arguing that at least restitutions are happening.
Right,
at least there's a conversation. So the question is there a feeling of satisfaction, or is there disbelief to the sincerity? I'm adding to your thing. Is there because that's what's happening now. Is there a disbelief to the sincerity of the ongoing conversations? So I guess the question is: there a satisfaction because some things are happening now, or is it bullshit?
Well, you see, the fact that I'm here and you are here, to me, is a development. It means that, historically, there is, the fact that you are here makes me very, very happy and very excited and highly motivated that, the restitution debate is alive and kicking, you see. And that's why, from my attitude now is that I should try and explore other possibilities of like audiences or venues like this in Europe and elsewhere, because Europe and America, and I'm thinking of going back to America again, because Europe and America really hold the key of, the essence of, the debate about restitution is about them coming to terms with the reality or the fact that they looted these things, they didn't pay for it, it was not given to them as a gift, and sometimes they use Africans to carry these objects for miles, walking for miles to the ships that were used to bring the objects here and etc. So really, Europe has a serious, case to answer. Restitution, they should be actually leading the march for restitution. You see, but now it's a question of we going to them and say, oh, this is, can you give it back to us and stuff like that. Of course, we have to do that too. But I believe that this kind of gathering should result in the message being shared, because social media now is the biggest, and so one of the things I'm planning to do is to disseminate information on You Had Me in social media, which I hadn't done before, and make it available and raise and be part of the restitution debate, which is taking place elsewhere. As I said, I've been invited to Japan, and when I get back to Ghana, I'm kind of very much looking forward to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, talking about translations, the Ghanaian, the focal group, they have agreed. The focal group, they have agreed that in order to mobilize support for the film, we cannot just operate on the level of the English language, show it on national television, but we should do local language versions, so that when there's a campaign, it's not a campaign by just intellectuals or just a certain category of the people, but it has to be popularized at the local level so that people, because the local language TV stations, the positive thing about local language TV stations is that people can call in from different parts of the country and discuss a topic in their language. So we want to create an avenue so that You Had Me can be discussed nationally.
So what I'm saying is, how can it be a part of the process of restitution that countries that have stolen goods invest in this or other goals like this, Because it's one thing, because I think it would be one thing to send back objects, but that also comes with a whole lot of questions as what, like first of all, the health concerns maybe with some of the objects that have been sprayed for very many years, the spiritual concern of objects that are not meant to be treated as pieces that you look at in a museum, but are lived objects that have passed
religious
at this point.
objects.
Exactly, that have passed at this point. And to what extent can a part of the conversation be, all right, so how can these countries now invest some of the lots and lots of loads of money that they've made from displaying these objects in translating films like this, and these kinds of endeavors that invest in the cultural identity of the countries trying to emerge today, now?
Well, to tell you the truth, the British Council or the British in Ghana, I don't know about other parts of Africa, they are not interested. I mean, I must say that, you know, I want to congratulate Professor Benedict Savoy. She wrote a remarkable book, an outstanding book, Africa's Struggle for Its Art. And there's a whole chapter on You Hide Me in that book. And that book, to me, is like a Bible. It's a book that for the first time since the film was made, you know, the book has been launched. It was launched in America. There's a German language version, I'm sure, as you know. And so to me, these, you know, developments, you know, has emboldened me and more or less aroused me to, you know, but as for the British, I think the Germans are much, you know, better than the British when it comes in supporting African projects and so on and so forth. Because I tried to interest the British Council on this project, and you know, their attitude was, oh, we are going to write to England and then we'll get back to you. You know, this kind of attitude. So, you know, the first time this film was shown outside Ghana, it was shown in Dinard in France. There was a film festival in France. I took it to Dinard. When it was shown, there was a lukewarm attitude towards it. I mean, nobody said anything to me at all.
Because they don't speak English.
It was like, it's one of those things, you know. And yet the film was programmed, was part of the program. And I felt a bit, you know, strange and weird that, you know, France, of all, you know, countries, you know, and there you go. So I lost interest in sending the film to festivals. So that's another thing, because I could have continued to move from one festival, but the first festival was very disappointing. So that's also one of the reasons why I just put the film aside and didn't bother any longer. But
I believe the question was also towards the reception within Africa. What discussions it led to?
Well, the film has not been distributed in Africa. The only copy of the film that was, you know, purchased was by the Nigerian Museum. That was in 1971.
And what did they do with it? They put it.
I sold them a reel, the celluloid version of the film, and I don't know what they did. They ordered a copy and they paid for it. I was very happy that at least an African country, you know, somebody who saw it in the West Africa magazine decided to order it. But apart from that, this film has not been shown in Africa at all. I mean, and that's another journey, you know, that's what I'm saying.
Which is the case for many films about Africa.
Yes. You see, and I didn't send it to FESPACO. I'm sure you heard about FESPACO, the African Film Festival in Ouagadougou, the famous festival. Because it was an old film and I didn't, you know, but now that the Paris prize for the film has erupted, you know, there are a lot of demand for different festivals for me to bring the film.
This is the basement of the British Museum.